Hello, Formula One fans, and welcome to Fans Forum, the show where we put you guys in pole position, driving the conversation, of course. And we're going to be delving into everything that's happened across Miami Grand Prix weekend, where McLaren reigned in and around the rain. 2 wins for the Papaya, Lando taking the sprint, and of course, Oscar winning the Grand Prix. But the big stats, of course, Oscar Piastri, 3 Grand Prix wins in a row now. That hasn't happened for McLaren since world champion Mika Hakkinen back in the 1990s. Is Oscar the real deal? Are you a Papaya fan out there that's happy? Or maybe you're more Team Lando and you want him to bounce back? Whatever your opinions, let us know in the chat box. We want you involved in the conversation just as much as my VIP co-host as we delve into everything, who today is none other than the lady herself, Last Lap Lucy. Hello, my dear. How are you?
Hello. I'm good. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, really great to have you here. So for people that don't know, myself and Lucy met outside of the O2 Arena during the F175 launch. She gave us some great content in and around the launch of the season. And it was so good that we thought, you know what, we've got to have her on the show at some point. And here she is, sporting the Papaya here today. But first thing I'm going to ask you, in fact, Lucy, is where did your love affair begin with Formula One?
Ooh, okay. So it's a story. So it started off when I was probably 0 or 1 years old.
Mm-hmm. What year would that be? Give us an insight into your age.
So I'm 22.
Okay.
So I was born in 2002, right after the season. So my first F1 season was 2003. My dad would
just
have
remember it.
No, not that bit. I'll tell you. We'll get to this. This is what I'm saying. There's a story. So heads up to everyone else. I'm Last Lap Lucy, but sometimes I call myself Last Yap Lucy because I am a yapper. Like, one thing about me is I will speak. So I apologize in advance. There's going to be some rambling, but I also don't apologize because we love a ramble.
We love it. You can never have enough to say, in our opinion.
So yeah, my dad would have it on TV. He wasn't like mega into it. He would just have it on because it was on, because it was back on the BBC back then, so it was free to watch. So yeah, and then, you know, as I gained consciousness, probably about 4 or 5 years old, I started to understand what was going on. And my dad would try and explain it in the simplest terms to me. He'd say, like, look, that one there in the silver car with the yellow helmet, that's Lewis Hamilton. And I'd be like, wow.
Lewis.
Yeah, so I learned that's the one that I could recognize. I was like, oh, silver car, yellow helmet, Lewis, exactly. And you know, he was doing the winning as well. He's this cool rookie. He'd literally say my first ever memory of F1 was the 2007 season, and it was rooting for Lewis Hamilton. So I remember very, very vaguely him having his first ever win. I was buzzing. My biggest memory from back then actually was the end of the 2008 season, which what a time that was to be a 6-year-old Lewis Hamilton fan.
Because I was around the living room during the Brazilian Grand Prix.
So what we do, literally, whenever it was Sunday, we had this tradition. We'd get some like ham. So I'm a vegetarian, so it was veggie ham, and it was literally just this pink circle. And I cut it to be the shape of a helmet. Like, I'd cut the little visor bit out. I'd call it the Hamilton, and I'd eat it. That didn't even sound so impressive when I said it out loud, but it was a fun thing that I do, and I remember putting tomato ketchup on it as well.
Yeah, so vegetarian ham with tomato ketchup is very much a recommendation from you. For a
I don't know if I'd recommend it. I don't know if I'd recommend that, but Lucy, it made me happy.
Lucy, let's get into this weekend that's just gone by. Sprint weekend, so lots of action to cover. Gary in the chat box, who is our unofficial co-host. Gaz, great to have you here as always, my man. Saying the best weekend so far. In your opinion, Lucy, what did you make of it as a whole before we get into the details?
So when I was thinking about coming on this show with you today, and I was like, I'm so glad I got Miami, because like there's so much to talk about. It's not like, you know, we've had some races this season that have been a little bit processional. But yeah, we where do we even begin, really? There's so many different things that went on. So yeah, let's cook.
Yeah, I mean, there was so much. I love it. Look, Felix is saying, listen, they should have all gone driving in the rain. They shouldn't have held it back. And that he's saying that Oscar and Kimi very much delivered. We're going to get into that. Of course, Kimi Antonelli, now the youngest ever pole sitter in Formula One history. Ferrari doing Ferrari things. Yet too true. I want to try and get on a Ferrari fan soon, in fact, to do an overview of their season so far, and we'll talk about all of that. The calamity that was Charles Leclerc in the sprint, Lewis Hamilton being really hard on himself across the weekend once again as well. when Felix is saying, why didn't they show the Lego race? Maybe Ferrari should have raced in their Lego car. Who knows? They would have done a little better. But Lucy, of course, the big story is that Papaya dominated once again. And Oscar Piastri in the Grand Prix coming from P4 to win the race. What did you make of his performance? Is this the drive of a future champion?
Yeah. So actually, going back to when you said that we met just outside the O2 where they had those pictures of all the drivers up on the wall. And you actually met me midway through filming some content. I can't remember if I actually told you what I was up to, but I was standing in between the two pictures of the drivers and I was running at whichever driver I thought would place higher than their teammate. Pretty safe picks, it's a lot of them very obvious, like, I don't know, Stroll versus Alonso or Hulkenberg versus Bortoletto, a lot of rookies. So, but for the McLaren, which was the very last one I got to, I actually ran at Piastri. And when I posted that video, it was at the start of the season. Everyone was like, what is she on about? She's a mad lady. But I don't know. I felt it deep within that Piastri's got that dog in him. And
yeah, but
you know what?
I think we have quite a British-centric perspective here in the UK. And when I was in Bahrain, there was a lot of Aussies there, and they, of course, have been backing Oscar from the very start. And if we look at Oscar's history, what he's achieved in such a short time within Formula One, as soon as he had a good machine underneath him, I mean, it's been coming, hasn't it? It's not an absolute surprise.
Yeah, so that's exactly why I've kind of been backing Oscar to do well this season, because now that he's got the car to do it, he can absolutely show us what he's made of. And I think the biggest thing when people have tried to doubt Oscar or say, oh, he's not ready, blah, 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 I say, well, look at his junior career. He's absolutely romped his way through Formula 3 and Formula 2. Let's not forget that. Like, he's had a few years to get used to the world of F1 now. He's got used to the car. He's comfortable with the team. There is absolutely nothing standing in his way anymore.
And also, was it 1 or 2 seasons out after winning F2, just sitting around and not having a race car as well?
I think it was just one.
All right, okay, just one. So, yeah, to come in, and I know that McLaren wasn't great at first, was it? But Andrea Stella has really come in and turned that team around. But, of course, all the focus for the Championship Challenge was on Lando Norris at the beginning of the season. Do you feel the tide turning? How do you feel the horizon is with regards to Lando Norris's potential to be a driver's champion this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think F1 fans are definitely very reactionary. I think from the minute Piastri won a race this season, people were saying, oh, maybe it's Piastri's year. Everyone just flipped immediately. I think a lot of people now, Piastri's had a good few races. I think now people are counting Lando out just based on this very narrow set of races. But, if we look at Lando versus Oscar as teammates, they are very close with each other. And, we've seen some really good, like, close qualifying results and close moments out on track between the two of them. And they work really well as teammates, but ultimately, they're getting one and twos now. It's going to come down to the wire. I think this weekend, actually, someone asked them about, like, oh, do you see yourselves becoming a Hamilton versus Rosberg kind of situation? They were both kind of like, oh, we'll see. It's brewing, and I think they're both absolutely fantastic drivers. McLaren are so lucky to have such a great lineup.
Interesting. Noah's saying here, classic case of class versus form, but he thinks Piastri has the advantage in both compared to Lando Norris. So maybe saying that Lando's success that we've seen so far, in Noah's opinion, is down to form and is going to be up and down, whereas Piastri is showing to be a classier driver from Noah's perspective. What I would say is a good litmus test for both drivers, particularly if we look at this race weekend, is their dealings with Max Verstappen. What did you make of the way that both of them dealt with Max in the Grand Prix, Lucy? I mean, Oscar throwing Max a dummy, and Lando, previously criticised for not being aggressive enough, was possibly over-aggressive this time around. How did you see it?
Yeah, I mean, that was some really fun racing. I was watching with my family and I said to them, like, this is proper, this is what we want to see in F1. You know, we want to see right at the front this really close racing. And, you know, we live for the battle, you know, we don't want to just see the DRS overtake. So, yeah, I think both really impressive work from both the McLaren drivers. I think, you know, Piastri made very light work of Verstappen. So you'd kind of assume Norris would have done the exact same. I think Norris did definitely struggle a bit more. But I think, you know, I think it definitely was a case of Verstappen trying extra hard to defend as well, because he wanted to stay within the McLaren range. I think once you've let them both pass, that's it. They sail off into the sunset, and that's what we saw in the end. So he was really just trying to cling on to that front group as long as he could.
But for you, why is it that Oscar only needed to do it once and then he literally was gone? Why did Lando, and maybe for you, is it a mental element? Why did Lando back and forth with Max for a while? What's the difference?
I'm honestly going to say that it was less of a Lando issue and more of a Max issue. I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, when Lando made the attempt on Max for the first time, he basically went the exact same way that Oscar had. He tried the exact same thing, and Max saw it coming this time. He'd already raced on McLaren. He saw where the McLaren was going to gain, and he was ready to cover that off that time. So Lando had to be more creative and try and find a different way round.
Very, very good point there. I didn't think about that. Yeah, so maybe Max, after being dummied, was like, haha, not twice, please.
Not twice, exactly.
So let's talk about how they keep a happy camp at McLaren. Do you think it's easy with the kind of character that Lando is, let's say, because he wears his heart on his sleeve and he seems like a team player, but if the gap between him and Oscar continues to grow, Zach Brown's, I found it very interesting that when they were with him on the radio, he said, oh, wouldn't it be great to see an epic McLaren battle? I don't know whether that was more of a marketing quote for the American audience, but does he really want that? Do the papaya fans want that? What do you think?
It's a really tough one because, I mean, as it is right now, we don't really want to see the McLarens battling. I'm not especially a fan of any one particular team. I know I'm wearing a McLaren shirt, but I'm more of a fan of the thrill of F1 rather than dieharding for one specific group. But yeah, I think for McLaren, they'd want to see exactly what we saw this race. Both cars out in front, but no battling each other just yet. Build that solid lead. But then once they have that lead, I'd say yes, I think McLaren do want their drivers to have a little fight. Let them, yeah, exactly, do their own thing and have that opportunity to race. Because what better way do you show we are the best team than having both your drivers miles out in front, both side by side, neck and neck, you know, really going for that win, rather than having one clear better driver and, oh, well, they were just the best one. It's like we've got the absolute cream of the crop here. Here they are going wheel to wheel. And the fact that they can afford to let them do that is such a bold statement. So yes, I think once they've built that gap, they definitely would want to have those drivers go head to head. And, you know, it's exciting. It's a story.
I told you, Lucy, Gary, unofficial, co-host there. See, knowing exactly what you're thinking and saying that they'll do it clean and safe. Is that the case, though? Do you think that they really will, the longer the season goes? Is there any element of a Rosberg-Hamilton that could happen? Maybe if Zach Brown comes out early doors and says that they've got to pay for their damage if they hit each other now, then it does stay clean and safe.
That's really funny. I hadn't actually thought of that. I don't know how well they'd take that one.
Yeah, but I mean, it worked for Toto. I think it was kind of last chance solution for him.
I mean, I think as teammates, you kind of know your number one thing is do not hit your teammate. Like, do not. So I'm hoping they'd both be smart enough to stay clear of each other, to race each other, but still give themselves that respect. And yeah, exactly what Felix has said, more screen time. So, you know, if their drivers are wheel to wheel, boom, that's a TikTok clip right there. That's going to bring in more eyes on McLaren. No one's interested in two cars miles ahead of the road not doing anything.
Yeah, Karina saying she's not sure she's ready, though, for Mercedes 2.0.
I am already ready.
Yeah, we want to see as many battles out there as possible, don't we? Do you find yourself, Lucy, cheering different drivers now? Because I know I do. All of a sudden, I am Max Verstappen's #1 fan.
It's a really tough one because I think it's definitely happened over time, because I think generally F1 fans, there was a time where there was a massive group of people that were just preying on Lewis Hamilton's downfall every single race, because Lewis was the best driver. He was doing all of the winning every single race, and it was getting predictable. So yeah, there was a point where, everyone wanted to see Lewis not win. And now it's like, through goes Hamilton. Everyone's like, yeah, go Lewis. Like the tides have changed, and we're seeing it again now with the period of Verstappen dominance that we had has now kind of ebbed away. So now Max is back to being the underdog. So yeah, same things starting to happen. I think for me, generally doesn't affect me too much, because I just like I said, I'm just here for the fun of it all. So I always tend to just root for whoever's behind and try and help them get the overtake. I'm like, yeah, go, dude. And then the second they've swapped back, I'm like, yeah, get him back. Like, I'm such a flip-flopper like that. Obviously, I have my favorites, but yeah, most of the time, especially out in front, yeah, I just love a bit of action.
It's the best way to be. I mean, that's how I can watch the football, because the Premier League, I've got no horse in the race. I support Charlton. We're in League One, so you can just watch it and enjoy it. So yeah, as soon as you start backing someone, that's when the tribalist bit gets you, and the emotion, and it's too stressful. But I tell you what, Lucy, I want to move it forwards and talk about Lewis's old team, Mercedes, and it must be a difficult watch for him at the moment. I've labelled George Russell Mr. Podium, because 4 podiums in the 6 races so far this season. George flying in the Mercedes. And if we look even at the Drivers' Championship, I'd say George is in the race in P4, 93 points. So, all right, it's 38 points behind Oscar Piastri, but we never know what could happen. I know Mercedes have got a big upgrade coming soon as well, but George is very much in the running and leading that team gallantly. What have you made of Mr. Russell?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to take George's own words here. For those that remember the Rookie of the Year 2019 video, which is one of my favorite pieces of content that's ever existed, ever.
If anyone didn't see it, remind us. What was it?
Okay, so a certain Mr. Russell said, so he did a whole PowerPoint to explain why he should be Rookie of the Year. And he said, consistency is key. He said, in Formula One, consistency is key. And he's absolutely proving that this season. It's not always about being first and then last. Sometimes being solidly up there is exactly what counts, because you're getting the big points haul every weekend. Yeah, it's really impressive stuff. And, it really shows that he's a dependable driver, and he's just a really good asset for Mercedes.
Yeah, let's turn attention as well to the big story out of the Silver Arrows, which was Kimi Antonelli securing pole position in the sprints, becoming the youngest ever pole sitter in a Formula One car in any version of racing. And Gary just saying perhaps the nerves got to him a little at the start of the sprint. What did you make of, well, first him securing the sprint, and what have you made of Kimi's talent? And then it was unfortunate how it played out in that first corner, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a really odd one, because so it was Friday night, wasn't it? It was the quali.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. That's it. So Saturday morning is the sprint race.
Yeah. So I'd kind of spent my whole day kind of keeping track of what was going on in racing, because we had the British F4 and everything. There was a lot of racing going on, and I've been doing a lot of interviews recently. And I'm also going away next week. So I thought, right, Friday is going to be my editing day. I'm going to skip sprint quali. I'm going to sit down, get my editing software up, and just edit, and have a big load of videos ready to go when I'm away. Great. But then I was like, I'm going to tune into Q3. I don't know what made me want to do that, but I just felt like I needed to watch. And boom, Antonelli pole. So I was so glad that I tuned in. I was so happy. It was so refreshing to see a new driver getting pole position. I think was Piastri the last one that we saw being a maiden pole sitter?
Pass off the top of my head, but I mean, we're feeling this next generation come through, exactly. Very much so.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, he's a rookie. He's a rookie this season, and he's on pole position. That's a story. That's thrilling. And do you think he's living up to the hype? Do you think he's over hyping his hype, or do you think he's just about right? I think he's just about right. I mean, there's definitely been some crazy hype around Kimi. Even since the late 2010s, that hype's been there. You know, he was 14 and everyone was talking about him like he was the coming of Senna. And I didn't know the hype. I hadn't really seen him race. And then I went to Spa with my boyfriend and I saw him do this incredible bold move, literally down Eau Rouge up into Radion on the inside, boom, overtake. And I filmed all of it. And I was like, I get it now. I literally I saw the hype then and I was like, yeah, this is Jesus. So it was so much fun. And yeah, ever since then I thought, yeah, Antonelli's got that good stuff. So yeah, I think a lot of people, having heard the hype but maybe not seeing him race previously, might have thought, well, what's all this? Because, you know, he's just a guy. He's literally just pulled up. He's a rookie. He's getting used to the car. And, you know, his first few races were fairly average. He kept up nicely with George, but nothing stand out. And that's fine. That's absolutely to be expected. I mean, the fact that he kept up with George is wonderful. But yeah, I think now, you know, getting a pole position, that was him really, you know, putting his name down in F1 going, yeah, I'm here. I belong here. I deserve this opportunity. I am the right person to fill Lewis Hamilton's shoes.
Yeah, I mean, Gary makes a really good point here, saying he's the Luke Litzler of the grid. And I guess it's about engaging that next generation of fans, isn't it? In a sense of possibly even Max Verstappen. For those that are younger, the connection isn't so there. Now we've got your Lando Norris's, your Oscar Piastris, Kimi Antonelli at only 18 years old. It's like all young people out there, that fandom is going to grow because these guys are the same age as them.
Yeah, exactly. I think when you join F1 as a fan, you want to kind of root for someone who's a rookie at the same time as you. So I mentioned Lewis Hamilton. For me, you know, he just kind of started, I was just gaining consciousness. Me and Lewis have kind of journeyed together through F1. And I actually mentioned it was a long and complicated, what?
Me and Lewis have journeyed together. I love it.
We have. I've basically been right there with him every step of the way. I'm Roscoe. But yeah, I mentioned it was a bit of a long and complicated story. And basically, after F1 came off free to view on the BBC and went to Sky, I actually couldn't keep watching because I was too young to understand what had happened. Obviously, couldn't pay the subscription. My dad wasn't going to pay the subscription. So I just, fell out of love with F1 because it just wasn't there anymore. I kept up to date with the results and things, but it was only one night in 2019. I was bored. It was 3 a.m. I was opening up Netflix. I'm sure you can see where this story is going. Drive to Survive was there. And I was like, oh my God, that's Formula One. That's the show I used to love when I was a kid. Clicked on it. And I was like, is Lewis Hamilton still in it? You know, I'm watching Drive to Survive. I see him. I'm like, that's Lewis. And, you know, I just watched 2 episodes and I'm like, why did I stop watching F1? Why? And that's when I worked out what had happened with the free-to-air stuff. And from then on, I realized you could watch the Channel 4 highlights that evening for free. So I was like, oh, I can watch F1. So it was almost like my rebirth into F1. So, of course, I wanted to pick a rookie. From that year, someone that, you know, fit my vibe. And that's how I became an Alex Albon fan, because he was a rookie in 2019. So he was in his Toro Rosso. He had a really good battle with Kvyat, his teammate, at the Hungaroring. And I was like, I like that guy. That's the plucky rookie that I need. And I saw a bit of him off camera, like off track, as well. And I was like, same personality as me. We're basically the same guy.
Are you a cat lover then?
Oh yeah, I do love cats. I unfortunately don't have any, but I would love to. Like, I love the aura, you know. He just gives anxious energy, and that's very me. And then he ended up in a Red Bull. So yeah, I've kind of just become a diehard Albonista, as I like to call myself.
Gary makes a really good point here, though. So talking about these stories of rookies and how we grow that affiliation with them as we journey with them. Just saying that Kimi, this story of him being the youngest ever pole sitter, and really nice to see the seasoned drivers congratulating him. And there was a really good clip with Toto Wolff as well. I don't know if you saw it, where they all had the big hug and everything. And he said, right, we celebrate now, but now let's get to work as well. So we've got to make it count and capitalize on it. Of course, the race didn't go to plan, but another nice point that I saw, and if we think about what's around Kimi within the Mercedes family, that difficult start in the Sprint Grand Prix, George Russell, I don't know if you noticed, pulled out of a move on him and then just quite comfortably sat behind him. So, Kimi had lost quite a few places already. And rather than George just attack him and just put him under more pressure or perhaps leave him in the lurch, it's almost like he protected him, which I thought was a really nice touch as a leader from George. And what do you make of Mercedes' approach, shall we say, to nurturing young talent as opposed to somewhere like Red Bull?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's... I can't find the words, but it's a really secure play from George there to confidently stay behind Kimi. Do you know what I mean? I feel like sometimes drivers, when they're stuck behind, they're like, let me pass, I'm faster. It always comes across as insecure. Someone said the other day, if you're faster, you overtake, or something like that. But, George didn't need to assert his dominance because he knows he's the lead driver. He's the guy. And yeah, for me, huge respect, because there's no need to start trying to put someone down. Let them have that moment.
I think his head probably was all over the place because that was his moment, and to a certain extent, it hadn't gone the way he would have liked. So then to just put more pressure on him behind, I think later on, a good few laps later, George made the comment of, I've got more pace, but not immediately.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Sometimes drivers just come up and they've literally, the second they've even whiffed the rear end of their teammate, and that sounds really bad when I say that now. But the second they catch a glimpse of the same rear wing in front of them, they're like, "Let me through," and that's not really what we want to see. We want to see it happen out on track, and and honestly, with Kimi's pole, it was honestly kind of predictable that he wasn't going to hold that. I don't think anyone thought the Mercedes was the fastest car this weekend. It was kind of a matter of when rather than if, as to when he moves that position.
Piastri is a class act, like we said. So from the outset, it was going to be difficult to hold on to. Just real quick, so you've got to move it forwards. I mean, we could sit on this topic for ages, but we've given plaudits to George Russell a few times there. Where do you think he'll be driving next year?
Mercedes? Is there something I should know?
Well, his contract's up at the end of this season.
I think Mercedes. So I'm sticking Mercedes for me, 100%. Like, George is a very loyal personality and driver. He's always stayed loyal. All through his junior series, Mercedes. He was a Mercedes guy. As soon as he gets into F1, he's with Williams, obviously looking to move up to Williams. He was looking to Mercedes, looking to take Lewis Hamilton's throne. But even when Williams were, speaking as a Williams person, Williams are right there at the back and, P19, P20, every single race. To quote Rookie of the Year again, he said, I qualified P19, I've had someone behind me. And that someone was his teammate. But yeah, bless him. Not once did he speak bad on Williams during that whole time. Every single time he'd come back, he'd say, yeah, we're going to work on this. I've got the team behind me. I'm really grateful for these opportunities. He was never greedy. He always trusted. And again, with Mercedes, when he made that move up to Mercedes, unfortunately, the one year that Mercedes stopped dominating, bless his sweetheart, he must have been gutted. But, even then, he didn't complain. He just, what's the British phrase that they do? Like, upper lip, stiff upper lip.
Yeah, just very diplomatic.
Yeah, he was like, you know what? It's not ideal, but this is the cards we've got, and I'm sticking with this team. So everything he's ever done, even speaking as an Alex Albon fan, when Red Bull were kind of giving him these really awful quali strategies, George actually spoke up in a press conference for his friend. He was loyal to his friend. So, if I had to describe George Russell's personality and driving career in one word, loyal would be a strong contender. So I don't see him jumping ship at all, especially with other teams being so volatile at the minute.
Karina on the grid absolutely agrees with you as well. She says she thinks he'll still be driving at Mercedes next season. One of our previous guests there. Thanks for tuning in, Karina. Let's move it forwards then. Let's talk about the team that's won the Drivers' Championship for the last 4 years. 4 years, courtesy of Max Verstappen. And what did you make of Max across the Miami weekend? I'd say the sprint was one where he wasn't helped out by his team, but the Grand Prix, Max did all he could. Is he overdriving that car for you?
I think he's always been overdriving that car. To be honest, I'm friends with a guy who does karting, and he has basically ruined my perspective on the word overdriving. Because he explained there's only so well a car can drive. You can't overdrive a car. You can't outperform a car. You can only unleash 100%.
Right.
And I would say Max is always at that 100%. He's at the max. See what I did there? But no, he's always like, he knows how to extract every last ounce of performance out of a car. And, you know, he's struggled a bit more this season. I think this is the first time we've started to see some actual like chinks in the armor with Verstappen. But, you know, if anyone can try and drag that Red Bull up, it's him.
Yeah, congratulations becoming a father, of course. You don't think that would slow him down?
No, I saw someone joke the other day, I think it was on Twitter. I'm not calling it X. But I saw someone make a joke that he'd like lost the baby weight or something. Like he's given birth and now he's lighter because he was really quick straight after. Yeah, so it's a funny one. I was partially hoping that he'd win this weekend because then he could like dedicate it to his newborn and it would be a really sweet moment. He could be like, look, I won the weekend that you were born. And, you know, unfortunately it didn't quite play out that way, but yeah, I would have been a really sweet moment.
At least. So
exactly.
Exactly. So he still has a trophy.
Exactly. He's got something, yeah. Little something to dedicate to his little girl.
Gary saying that the car, or was it Max, Gary, that seemed to lack pace? I think like Lucy said there, Max seems to be extracting every single bit out of that car. But I think from the grid box stuff, from the unsafe release in the pit lane, are we beginning to see chinks in the armor, perhaps, of that dynasty and that dominance that's happened? And do you think they'll bounce back in 26, or was this their time?
I think there'll be some bouncing back. I think I've heard that they've been focusing a lot on the 26 regs and kind of written off 2025 a little bit more. I think there's definitely starting to be some situations going on at Red Bull. And I think it started perhaps with Adrian Newey's departure from the team. I think that's quite a tell, really, as to which direction Red Bull might be going. Because, I mean, that's Adrian Newey, you know? So, yeah, and as we can see, Aston Martin have got Adrian Newey and they're nowhere this season. So it's very clear that a lot of teams are working on 2026. Meanwhile, I think a team like McLaren, they're going to be continuing to develop this year's car because they want to win that championship. They want to make it a double. That's huge for them. So they want to take the opportunity while it comes.
So Gary saying that he doesn't think that Max will keep pace with McLaren and he'll finish third or fourth. Max currently sitting third as best of the rest in the Drivers' Championship. Do you think there's much legs, Lucy, in this clause that he can leave if he's lower than third in the table? And if he does that change your opinion on where George Russell races next year, perhaps?
No, I'm so solid on George staying with Mercedes. And to be honest, I'm really solid on Max staying with Red Bull too. I think he's very well supported within the team. It's basically been entirely built around him. He knows it's an environment he can thrive in. He knows they're capable of giving him the good stuff. He's stuck with them for so long, just as George has stuck with Mercedes for so long. And I mean, to be honest, I never saw Lewis to Ferrari happening. I'd have said, he's loyal. I'd have come on this podcast 2 years ago and insisted Lewis would never, ever leave Mercedes and he's going to retire with them. And here we are now. So, surprises can happen in F1. So, I'm not going to fully count it out, but I'm basically going to fully count it out.
Well, I mean, Lewis jumped ship, but who knows? Maybe he'll jump ship again with current performance.
True. I would if I was him.
He'd say, sorry, Mr. Ferrari, here's your money back. I'm going to go elsewhere. But listen, Lucy, your opportunity now to fangirl out. Let's talk about what's going on at Williams. Double points, back-to-back Grand Prix. It's a good time to be involved with the team now, isn't it? First, we'll start with your boy, Alex Albon. Currently sitting, where is he in the championship, Albon, now?
I don't know.
I'm just looking at the chat. Hey, he can't be that far down. I've got it in front of me here. He's P8 in the championship in drivers. And then more importantly, Williams are 5th. So that's a serious amount of money on top of, last year they took a couple of jumps down, P9 after a solid year at P7, which they were jubilant about. But imagine if they could finish 5th, i.e. best of the rest. Do you think Williams have got that in their locker?
Much as I try and pretend I'm not a Williams fangirl, I am, okay? I came on here, I was like, yeah, let me wear the McLaren shirt because we're going to be talking a lot about McLaren. It's very on theme. No, I should have just come decked out in my Williams gear again because they're doing so good. They're doing so good. And it makes me so happy because, like, you know, like I said, I've been there. I have followed this journey. I've followed Alex Albon. I've watched him with Williams for the last few years, and I also really like George Russell as well. Yeah. So I've seen how much Williams have grown, and you know, from a team that were literally fighting for last.
Yeah, well, survival at one point, really. I mean, it was survival. Investment, yeah.
Yeah. And now, look at this. You know, we were at a point where George Russell scored like a point, and he was in tears. He was literally sobbing in the media pen over a point. And now look, like P5, a P4 in the sprint, but we don't need to talk about what happened after. Like,
yeah,
it's not just becoming a one-time thing, you know? There was a time when Williams would just go out in Q1 every time, and if they made it to Q2, it was like, I remember one time when Alex Albon made Q2, and I was literally like screaming. I think I fell off my chair. But now it's like, if they're out in Q2, that's almost a disappointment.
I would love to know the stat, actually. As I said, it's double points back-to-back races. I don't know when that would have last been. I think it would have been close to when you was born, surely. It would have been in and around the Felipe Massa.
I don't know. When Maldonado won that was Williams, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, but what I'm saying is 2 races back to back where both cars finish in the points. So I think maybe in the Massa Bottas era, which was that? I'm trying to get back.
That was not when I was born.
Right. No, yeah, you were about what, 10, 11? Was you about 10 or 11 years old then?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the kind of the 2010 era, but it's been a while anyway. And Gary just saying it's great to see them point scoring and doing so well again. And I know that Gary's much older than the 2010s, and he can probably look back to the heyday of when the likes of Damon Hill and co were racing for them, and Gary was probably living his best life in his peak, weren't you, Gaz?
You know, it's just a real feel-good story with Williams. I think it's something that everyone can smile about.
Why do you think this has happened, though, Lucy? What's been the turnaround at that team for you? Is it the Carlos Sainz factor? But it can't be. There must be more going on. What do you think it is?
I'm so biased. It's the Alex Albon factor, obviously. No, I think it's a mixture of factors. I think they've got a really stable driver in Alex Albon. He's been able to provide a lot of feedback. He's taken a lot of knowledge and insight from Red Bull. He's been able to really help develop the car. I mean, the mechanics are always gushing about what great information he gives them. So, you know, it's been really helpful on the performance front. But then also with the new management, they've been able to pull in a lot more sponsorships. I mean, this season they've got a title partner with Atlassian. So it's really a mixture, like a bit of a perfect storm starting to brew of Albon's fantastic feedback, money coming in to actually fund the development, put it together, and you've got Williams cake. I don't know.
Yeah. I just want to pick up. I just see Gary's point here, just saying actually he can take it all the way back to when F1 was at Brands Hatch. So, Gaz, that's the 1980s, isn't it? You're talking about when I was born. And then Noah just saying that James Vowles and Alex Albon, the strong foundation at Williams. I was lucky enough. Jimmy V was on my flight to Bahrain the other week, and
really,
a real gent, and was really interested in talking to me as much about what I'd done at Grove for the team, as much as me and my friend wanted to talk to him about what the team was up to this weekend and why he was late to the Grand Prix. But yeah, James Vowles, how key and important has he been for you, Lucy? And how excited were you when they captured him initially?
Yeah, so I actually remember, I think I was at the Autosport show when it got announced last year. Or no, 2 years ago. I can't remember. There's been a lot of big announcements. But no, I was so happy because I'd seen the work that James Vowles had been doing with Mercedes, and for him to now be, at the helm of Williams. At first, I was a little bit like, okay, hopefully he's good. But the second I saw that he was cooking, I was like, yeah, we're good. We're so happy. And I think as a persona as well, he's just a really fun, good team principal. I think you sometimes see some team principals that are a bit harsh and, brutal, but I really sense with James Vowles that he's a leader. He's a true leader. And I think to be a leader, you've also got to think about the team rather than always. I'm going to go so off topic here, but at my day job, I'm a team leader at the minute, and part of doing that is managing the people that I work with and looking after them. And sometimes it's great to tell them, work, but sometimes, if someone's having a rough day, pull them aside for 5 minutes, say like, hey, what's going on? And sometimes giving them that chance to breathe actually brings out a better side of them. And that's exactly what I feel James Vowles has done. He allows the drivers to really thrive in this environment. I think, was it James himself that came on the team radio when Sargent wasn't feeling well in Qatar and said, like, it's okay, don't worry about the race, the most important thing is you. That to me really spoke volumes. And that was the moment when I was like, yeah, I would die for James' middle name Vowles. I don't know what his middle name is.
Why don't you do what Jack Whitehall does and say James Jimmy V Vowles? Yeah,
James Jimmy V Vowles. Like that to me, that's leadership right there. To understand what your team, what your drivers, what everyone needs, and that is what's making the difference, I'd say, as well.
Make the call now then, Lucy. Where do Williams finish in the Constructors' Championship at the end of this season? As I said, currently in P5. Last season finished P9. The season before that, though, P7. So higher or lower? What are you going for? Just like a game show now. Higher or lower?
Well, I'm going to say P6. And
nice.
I think one of the midfield teams surely comes back. They have their... I'm looking
here though. Like who though? Like it, and looking at the Williams driver lineup, which is solid. I mean, the Haas guys are overperforming.
I'll be honest,
they're still 17 points behind Williams. Aston Martin, I mean, that car, just doesn't look good at the moment. And then you've got, then you'd probably just say the Racing Bulls, but it feels like one half of that garage is not going to perform this season. And I'm not talking about Isaac Hadjar.
Ouch. I just couldn't say P5. I can't jinx it. I can't put that. I can't jeopardize my boys. I can't.
Okay, no worries then. Listen, I see why you're playing it safe, and then if you get above and beyond that, happy days, right?
And let's take a look at. Oh, sorry. Go nuts.
Let's take a look at Ferrari then, because I'm just conscious of time. It's 15 minutes until our hour's up. I think we're not even halfway through the grid. But we're having a great time. That's the most important thing, and I hope the guys that are tuned in as well are. Ferrari, where do we start? Where do we go? Is Lewis Hamilton being too harsh on himself as a driver who's joined a completely new outfit? And he's had to say himself, he's learning completely new way of driving, of systems, of personnel. Is it a bit harsh on himself to think that he should be doing better than he currently is? What's your opinion on it?
I mean, Ferrari, my head is in my hands. I think Lewis is absolutely being too harsh on himself. He's a really good driver. As I've said, I've gone through it all with him. I am Roscoe, and we know what he's capable of. And I think when you move to a completely new team after being so familiar with your old team for so many years, I think he was with Mercedes almost a complete decade or just over.
Just over.
Yeah, just over. Yeah. It's a shock to the system. He's got to meet a whole new group of people. He's got to adapt to a car with maybe a slightly different driving style. He's got to work out how to communicate with his engineer. He's not got Bono anymore. He's going to work out how to give the feedback. He's also probably trying to learn Italian. There's a lot going on for the poor guy. And, there's been loads of media speculation around him as well. Like, is he past it? Blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of pressure on him. And, he's cool as ever. He's been mindful and thoughtful, and he's reflected on his own performance. He's held himself accountable a few times. He's not just going to lash out at anyone else but him. He's said, like, this is where I can improve. And I think it's perfectly reasonable for him to think, yes, this is where I can improve. But I think most of all, I think this race this weekend has really shown that no, he's still here. He's still got that dog in him. His race this weekend, especially in the main Grand Prix, it was bold and it was brave, and most importantly, it was intelligent. We've seen so many intelligent moves from Hamilton over the Grand Prix, such as just sitting behind the two that were squabbling in front of him. I think it was Sainz and Leclerc, just politely waiting. He knew he didn't need to do anything, and then we had a BTEC through goes Hamilton, and it was fantastic. I think I got
a podium in the sprint as well, which is positive for the team. But Charles Leclerc isn't performing either, so we know it's not just the driver. For you, what is wrong with that car?
I don't know. This is one of those things. I normally have an opinion on something. I don't. It's a surprise. Seeing Mercedes and even Williams. I was tweeting the other day actually about how wild it is that Sainz was kicked out of Ferrari and now he's in a faster car. Basically, that's funny.
So yeah. People are saying though as well, talking about Lewis's reactions on the radio, and you can hear the frustration and that element of sarcasm even coming through now. Of course, we have to sprinkle across it some of the adrenaline and the headspace that he's in during the time in the cockpit. But yep, is he happy with what's in and around him? Do you think?
I don't know. I think he wants to be happy. I think he's really trying hard to keep looking through those rose-tinted glasses, but those glasses have fogged up like crazy. He's trying to wipe them and they fog right back up. And, all he can hear is, Forza Ferrari. And he's like, make it stop. I don't know how to explain it. It's like the dream turning into a nightmare, but he's still trying to act like he's in Candyland. Because, this is a dream of any racing driver to race for Ferrari. Like, what an honor. It's a really tough one because I think we all knew from the minute he signed with Ferrari, oh boy, like Sir Lewis Hamilton has joined the circus, the clowns of F1 and how, they've got so much and they do so little with it. We all knew it was going to be a ropey one.
Interesting point from Karina though, just saying that it was great for Lewis to push for the softs rather than the mediums. So that in the sprint, I think it was, which enabled him to pull off the podium in the end. But do they need to decide, I guess, then, is Lewis leading or are they leading? And we've seen this before, haven't we, at Ferrari? Who's making the decisions? And what do you do when you've got a 7-time world champion coming with that experience? Yes, you want to lean on it, but isn't it? I mean, Gary makes that point as well, saying that they need to tap into his experience and knowledge. But doesn't everyone have their role to play in a sense of the engineers and strategists? What do you think, Lucy?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm a bit more with Gary on this one. I think there's only so much the data can tell you. And I think letting the driver have that input, they're the one with their wheels out there on the tarmac. They're feeling every second and they know what they can push out of that car. If they're feeling good on a certain tyre, if they're feeling like another tyre's not going to work for them, sometimes just let them make that call. I mean, it's not just Ferrari. If we look at McLaren is it Sochi? That one fateful race where Lando stayed out on his wets. And it turned out to be the wrong decision. But that's racing, He was out there. He was in those conditions. He was living it. The graph maybe said maybe he should pit. But if he was feeling confident out there, he made that call. And it's okay for him to make that call. He spoke up because, he's the one who's feeling it.
And Charles Leclerc, the incident in the sprint, which saw him not even feature, does he have to take a little bit of responsibility? Okay, even if he was on the wrong tyre, right, which Lewis again came out and said on the radio immediately to the team, should Charles have felt that and then maybe not put his foot down as he was going in that outlap?
Yeah, so I was saying just a few minutes ago about those rose-tinted glasses. Oh dear, he's had them on for a long time. I think they're glued to his head. Someone take them off him. He needs to speak out for sure. I think he's this Leclerc. Ferrari prodigy. Yeah. Okay. He's just like Ferrari prodigy, he's grown up in Ferrari aura. He's their champion in waiting, he's waiting for the moment and he needs to he needs to unleash the little dragon within him, you know? He needs to speak out a bit more and use his, be confident, because yeah. And also something I do want to mention with Leclerc, actually, and I'm sorry to say this to the Leclerc enjoyers, but he does have a bit of a habit of making mistakes under pressure. I think a lot of people point at Lando as being someone that does that all the time, but I think Leclerc is just as bad. Bless him. He's a really, really good driver, really quick, especially in quali. You know, he's so much talent, but yeah, because he's always pushing so close to the edge, sometimes he goes just over it. And, you know, it's really, really brutal to see when that happens, because you can really tell he's possibly the driver on the grid with the most heart in it. You know, he drives with his heart. And yeah, I think sometimes when you see things go wrong for him, it breaks your heart, because you can really see, you know, he's still that young boy looking up at the Ferrari and wanting to drive in it. And you just want to give him a little cuddle, you know, pat him on the head, tell him it'll be all right.
I think the spotlight has come off of Leclerc to a certain extent, and possibly he was under the same kind of scrutiny that Lando still finds himself in now. Would it have been the 2022 season, wasn't it? I think I remember the same kind of articles about what's happening to Charles Leclerc. Oh, look, another driver error. It's just that feels like a lifetime ago, because
it's
Ferrari...
so weird. During this race, actually, yesterday, I was thinking about the fact that I think it was back in, was it 2020 or 2019? I think it was 2020, but we had that battle at Austria between Verstappen and Leclerc. And everyone was like, this is it. This is a glimpse at the future. This is what our championship battles are going to look like. And everyone always thought it would be Verstappen versus Leclerc, and it just hasn't happened yet. It's Norris has come forward as the rival, which is so interesting to me, because he kind of came out of left field, and I love that.
It's all about the machinery, really, isn't it? And in fact, people in the chat box, let us know. Do you think that Charles Leclerc is going to bounce back? Because we haven't talked about him for a long time with regards to winning races and any kind of championship challenge, have we? And he's not in the twilight of his career like Lewis. I guess you would expect Charles to be hitting his peak right now, but I mean, both of them, Charles and Lewis, don't have the machine underneath them.
The good thing is, though, he's not the rookie he once was. Leclerc, he's grown a lot and learned a lot. He's made the mistakes, like I said, but he's learned from them. I think Charles he's very hard on himself, but that's because he learns from it. You know, he's finally broken free of a lot of his curses, the Monaco curse, most notably. You know, things have stopped going wrong for him. So I think once he does get that solid car under him, he's absolutely going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Let's push it forward then, talk about the rest of the grid. So the Racing Bulls first. Not much to report with regards to a positive weekend. Isaac Hadjar still qualifying and performing well. Liam Lawson, 2 major incidents in both the sprint and the Grand Prix, and he's ended up with a penalty point on his super license, hasn't he? Is that, again, a man who's possibly trying too hard at the moment because of previous things that have happened, to trying to prove himself a little too much?
Yeah, it's not his year, is it? Bless him. Yeah, honestly, I don't have too much to say about the RB guys, because they were a bit of a nowhere team this weekend. They very much faded into the background. I think the only interesting thing that made me actually notice them was their incredible livery. Shout out to the livery. Pink.
Yeah, they're doing that quite a lot, aren't they, across different races? But just returning it to Lawson real quick. So he had the incident with Fernando Alonso, which wrecked Alonso's sprint and would have been Alonso's first points of the season. A guy who's having a very tough season, even though all the experience that he's got. And then again, overly aggressive, perhaps, Liam Lawson alongside Jack Doohan. Doohan not really having anywhere to go, because he would have had to go over the white lines and off circuit. And Doohan paying the price immediately, and then Lawson paying the price later on during the race. What do you think lies in future for Liam Lawson? Is it a continued downward spiral? What does he need to do to bounce back within that Red Bull family for you?
He needs to go to therapy. And I mean that seriously. I think he needs to break free from the chains that Red Bull put him in, you know? I think the second he finds that self-confidence in himself and realizes, actually, it's chill, we're chilling, you know? He's a really good driver. He really is. I personally don't actually care for him that much as a driver or person, but No particular reason. I'm just not that interested.
Are you saying this is a Albonista? Is it he needs to join the school of Alex Albon and, like you say, get rid of those Red Bull reins and then begin to believe in himself again?
Maybe a little bit. But I feel like even at Red Bull, Albon did a very good job. And I'll fight this another day with you because just to let everyone know, Alex Albon's stint at Red Bull was very, very good. And I will not elaborate further.
Now we can appreciate it because we know the bespoke issues with the RB
but
car.
I've been saying this the whole time. Sorry, I get so heated on this one, but like I was as the Albonista that I am, I was there at the data every weekend. I was looking at the data, like especially Albon versus Perez.
And was there were two incidents that he was robbed of a podium. One was with Lewis Hamilton, wasn't it, where he would have finished on the podium, and there was another one, and like sliding door moments. It could have been so 2019. Different. Yeah, it could have been so different for Alex.
It was his rookie season, Brazil 2019, Interlagos. He was at that bit. I don't know the name of the corner, but yeah, boom. He's safety car restart. He's trying to. He's big chilling. He's been slaying. He's got that podium. It's literally the last lap. Lewis Hamilton, bam! I was gutted as a Hamilton Albon enjoyer. Not good.
Where do you lie on that? So if you had to pick one or the other, if they're both hanging off a cliff and you've got to save, you can only save one.
No, you can't say that. You can't say that.
They're both hanging by one hand, and you're not strong enough to pull them both up, so you've got to use both hands with one driver.
Okay,
who is it?
That's a trolley problem, so I'm not answering that one because I think culturally Lewis Hamilton is worth more to the world. But Alex Albon, in my heart, he's got a big place. So I'm not going to trolley problem them. But if they were side by side in race cars and I had to pick one to win the race, it would be Alex Albon. Let's put it that way. So 2019 changed me.
In equal machinery, toe to toe, you would take Alex Albon over Lewis Hamilton.
I'd root for him. Yeah, I don't think.
Oh, you'd root for him.
I don't think he'd win. Sorry. But let me make that very clear before I get cancelled. I'd root for him. I'd want him to go for it, and I think he could make a solid effort. I don't think he'd be much. Anyway, sorry, I've gone way off topic. But
let's pull it away from Alex. Alex has had his time.
Austria 2020, he was going to win that race. Okay, he was on fresh soft tires while the Mercedes on old mediums ahead of him were struggling on the curbs. He had made it past Lewis. He was like that much not past Lewis, and Lewis goes, and Albon goes, ah! And
but
Hamilton's
listen, look,
run out of the two to overtake. This scars me. This is your fault for bringing this up.
Hindsight is a beautiful thing.
Real tears.
And like you said earlier, didn't you? You said rookies, we will learn from it, and Mr. Albon has learned from it. And there's a time to be aggressive, and if you're racing against someone more experienced, there might be a time to pull out of a move. But back to Liam Lawson. Gary has said he thinks he's going to be looking for a seat again next year. Do you agree? Do you think Lawson will be within the Red Bull family next season? If he's not, are any other team willing to take him?
I don't think any other teams will be looking at him, especially when you've got drivers like Bottas and Perez on the market. It's tricky because a lot of it, I think, depends on the junior categories, Formula 2 especially. Off the top of my head, I can't actually remember who the Red Bull drivers in F2 are. Do you know?
No, sorry.
Yeah, I've not interviewed any of those ones, so I've not been following.
Also, I guess the point that you're making there anyway is that the Red Bull project should be a thing moving forwards, right? And it feels that Lawson is going the opposite way. So would it make any sense for them to keep him if, like you said, someone's flying in F2, then next year, is Frederick Vesti one of them, possibly? I can't remember.
That's a Mercedes one, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right, actually. I know that Jake Dennis from Formula E has done some FP sessions for the Red Bull team, but yeah, I'm not sure who's in the F2. You're tapping away,
I'm Googling it. You talk while I have a look. You know what? Sorry, I'm slightly off topic. Alicia Palmowski, she is fantastic, and she's an F1 Academy right now. Everyone keep an eye on her. She's wonderful.
Okay, maybe for the Racing Bull second seat next season.
Not next season. She's a little bit.
I know,
but keep an eye on her.
Will do. So, listen, let's push it forward because
Pepe Marti. He's a Red Bull back driver, and he's been doing the business in F2. He could take it. He could take the seat.
All right. Well, we will see. Taking a quick look at Haas. So Haas back-to-back no points for the first time this season. But the Haas fan, if I'd have given you that now after 6 races, you probably would have taken it, right?
Yeah. No. Fair enough. To be honest. Yeah. That surprised me actually, that when you said that just then, that was the first time they've not had points.
Yeah, because they had a shock in Australia. Then I think they got points, double points. Then it was Behrman got points. Then it might have been another double points, and then it's been 2 no points since then, I believe. But they're doing well. They're in P6 in the Constructors' Championship.
Yeah.
And we're getting that converged grid like we've wanted all this time. A point worth noting, though, actually. So Ollie Behrman retired with a power unit issue with the Ferrari power unit. Also, Bortoletto had a power unit issue. Could it be, we're talking about Ferrari and what's wrong with that car. They will know internally, deep internally, what's wrong with it. And maybe it could be something to do with that. Who knows? As those customer teams, they could be squeezing a bit more out of that energy. Yeah, so keep your eye on that.
That is a good one. I hadn't even thought of that. Huh.
Yeah, so we will see. But all is not well, within the Ferrari family at the moment. And then, unfortunately, Ollie Behrman did well in the sprint, but got his points taken off of him for a penalty. I didn't see what the penalty was for, though.
Yeah, so I believe it was a unsafe release in the pit lane or something. It was something I off the top of my head, it was not his fault. Unfortunately, really mixed weekend for me. Obviously, Alex Albon's my main guy, but if I had to pick 2 other drivers, like my top 3, it's Albon, Behrman, Stroll.
Okay, Lance Stroll. Well,
I felt the pain in your face when I said that third one.
I'm interested because not many people.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that one. But before we do, Alpine also ran pretty much. And let's just focus in on these rumours in and around Jack Doohan. Unfortunate for him, qualified in 14th for the Grand Prix, but retired pretty much immediately due to that Lawson contact. Do you think there's any legs in these rumours that Colapinto, there's this idea that one of the sponsors said something off camera while his mic was still on? Think there's any legs in it?
I think the pre-season, there weren't that many legs in it. I could kind of see that they had Colapinto as an option for them. But I think people were saying that he'd be replaced pre-season. I was like, no, that's ridiculous. That's not going to happen. That's the worst. That's a PR nightmare. But, now with, what was he? He said 6 races in, there's some grounds to remove him now. So now I am starting to think there could be some juice behind the goose. I don't know why I said that.
It rhymes.
I love that. I may have to start saying that one. I liked it. But yeah, it's an odd one. It's a really brutal one above anything else. Like I'm not going to play into the rumors too much, because if they're true, then it's going to happen. And if they're not true, then that's just putting a load of pressure on this poor rookie who's literally just doing his best. Like, Jack Doohan does not deserve this, whether it's true or not. Like, I think everyone just needs to lay off the poor guy a little bit. Like, he's had speculation on his seat from before he'd even touched a free practice session as a full-time driver. So,
yeah, I completely agree. We forget sometimes the human element of this, don't we? And these are only young men as well. So it's not even like experienced males here. It's young men that are still formulating themselves psychologically as well as physically. And it must really take its toll. And I hope he's got a good team around him. And if it doesn't work out, that he can still have that resilience and bounce back ability, because it's not fair to have all of that suspicion in and around the security of his seat, like you said, literally from the moment that he's been announced. I know, which is unfortunate for him. Take a look at the F1, the Stake Sauber guys. Again, not really much to report on performance, but Bortoleto out qualifying his teammate, best qualifying of the season. So that's something optimistic for the young Brazilian. Tough season for him, though, right? You know, and the outfit that he's coming into.
Yeah,
Is he under
him.
any pressure? Does he get a guaranteed seat next season because he's in an uncompetitive car? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a tough one. I think they'd be harsh to drop him after just one season. I think he's going to have a very similar trajectory to Zhou. I think he's going to be there for a little bit. It's not worth it to them to keep swapping the drivers as long as he's giving the good feedback and, you know, just being a solid part of the team. He's Brazilian, and you know there's a really solid Brazilian fan base in F1, and they've got a driver to get behind now. And I think that in itself is very valuable to Stake Sauber. I don't know what we're calling them, but
who will become Audi. So you know that's like you said, that's going to be hugely valuable to that brand.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it's a tough one. You know, I think just keep in mind that he's a rookie, really. And similarly to what I was saying about Hamilton, you know, whole new team, whole new championship, even for him, it's a massive jump in what he's used to. You know,
even more so, do you know he did no free practice sessions even as a rookie? So the first time he got physically in an F1 car was testing in Bahrain in February.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I know. That's
I really like Bortoleto as a guy. You know what I mean? He's one of the quiet ones, and no one really notices him. But he just seems like he's got nice vibes, and I want to see a bit more of him in F1 media because he just seems like the kind of guy that would like sit down and like bring you an orange juice at breakfast without you asking. You know,
I feel like next season we may begin to see more of them. Audi already sponsor, don't they, Sky Sports Output now? So that Audi are already making their mark within the series. So I imagine they'll put a lot. Well, that affiliation probably will get them more airtime once they transition to the Audi brand next year. But listen, Lucy, we've gone over the hour, but we can't go without you discussing what you revealed a moment ago, that you have a fan thing for Lance Stroll. So explain that for us, please. A difficult season thus far for Lance and his teammate Fernando Alonso. Lance, the only points for the team so far this season. Twice he's finished in the points, but they seem on a bit of a downward spiral at the moment. So talk to me about that whilst you explain how you became such a big fan of Lance Stroll. I'm assuming it's due to his Williams association. No. Okay. Your love of maple syrup? No. Ice hockey. I don't know.
No. The answer is it's been hidden in the pattern the whole time. Two main reasons. One, I love an underdog, and there is not anyone out there who is more of an underdog than Lance Stroll because everyone is rooting against him. Every single damn person in the F1 world, to the point where when I said that he's one of my favorites, your face said it all. I'm sure every time on TikTok or Instagram, when I go on there, I say anything remotely positive, I get a ton of hate comments. Every time anyone, you know, sometimes I'll randomly meet an F1 fan at an event and I'll go, oh, my top 3 drivers are Albon, Behrman, and Stroll. And they can tolerate, they're like, oh, Albon and Behrman, great. And the second I say Stroll, their face drops. Like, so I'm going to ask you, why not Stroll? And I'm going to defend him.
As a preferred driver?
Or just any, why do you not like Stroll? Tell me.
Oh, no, I have no problem with Stroll. But
okay, why do people not like Stroll? And I will fight you on it.
Oh, people don't like Lance Stroll because he got his opportunity within F1 via his dad, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Which is understandable. It was a time when those kind of things could happen. And yeah, so go on, bounce back from that.
But every driver did. I would say maybe with the exception of Esteban Ocon and Lewis Hamilton, every driver is only in F1 because they have rich parents. Obviously, Lance slightly richer than others, but, you know, let's look at Lando Norris's dad, Adam Norris. He's literally a multimillionaire. He's CEO of a company. There's some Ollie Behrman's dad, David Behrman, is it? Very, very rich guy. No one gives them hate for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's a different level of richness. But
and then possibly, maybe because of not even the Williams one, it's probably out of the drive to survive moment when he got bounced in at the expense of Ocon. And like you said, there may be, because people can see the Ocon story and go, oh my God, he's overcome so much adversity to get there. And then Lawrence Stroll, just buys the team, and one of them's getting kicked out. And even the reason that Ocon got picked over Perez was because Perez comes with all the Brazil money. So I guess the emerging market, let's say, of more working class fans, maybe that's the reason that they're not so favourable towards Stroll.
But then that's exactly it. Perez has the money. Why doesn't Perez get the hate? And I'm not saying they should get the hate. I just don't like the double standard of it only being Lance that gets the hate. He's the only driver on the grid that is like that.
Yeah, because he doesn't finish plumb last, does he, every week? Like,
he doesn't. He's actually a really good driver, and it's one of those things that's really annoying. When he's doing well, no one notices. When he's doing bad, ha 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 ha. You know, like everyone just points and laughs when he's doing bad. And off track, I have not really seen anything that makes me think that he is a bad person. You know, to me, he just comes across as very shy, very awkward even, and he doesn't really have much of a social battery, and I can relate to that. I'm someone that comes into an event and I'll go and sit on my own because I'm scared, you know, that I see myself in that, and I see, hey, there's a driver like me if I had a millionaire parent.
Noah went in twice and was like, no, listen, we don't like this, and his dad's that, and then he's come back and said, but he's doing all right this year.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, unfortunately now, well, not unfortunately, but he's had a decent start to the season. Pretty average Stroll performance, I'd say. Nothing special. I think it's just the fact that Alonso's not been doing well that people are going, oh my God, Stroll's doing good. No, I think that's another thing. Stroll's performance is pretty solid. Yes, he's crashed a few times. So have many other drivers. Yes, he's been beaten by his teammate. Yeah, his teammates have been 4-time world champion Sebastian Vettel and 2-time world champion Fernando Alonso. Who do you think is going to come out on top of that teammate battle? This man drove with like 1,000 broken bones and got P6 in an Aston Martin.
Yeah, okay. No, but listen, no one's denying that Lance Stroll is talented. And I am not saying personally that I have any issue with him. And I again, that element of the human side of it, you know, taking so much negative energy must take its toll on an individual. Hopefully,
that's what I'm saying. He does not complain. He puts on a brave face every damn day. When I've been at fan events, like when I was at the F1 paddock exit to try and meet some drivers, Lance Stroll was brilliant with the fans. Like he came out, he seemed nervous. He was looking around like trying to work out who's actually a genuine fan or someone who actually wanted to get a picture or an autograph with him, because you know he gets a lot of abuse from the fans, so he's cautious in the way that he approached people. But you know, I said, "Oh, Lance, can I get a picture?" He came over. He got the selfie with me, and he was quiet. He was polite. It's more than other drivers. You know, some drivers just breeze right past, didn't even wave at the fans, and they're not obliged to. But I think a lot of people say that, oh, Lance is this, Lance is that, Lance doesn't care. No, he actually took time to go above and beyond for people.
Listen, Lucy.
Sorry, I get very heated on Lance Stroll.
Listen, we wish Lance well for the next race in Imola, and we'll be reviewing it here on the Fan Forum on the 19th of May. But Lucy, it's been brilliant to have you on. You've given us great insight on all the different subjects and topic matters. And everybody out there, keep your eye on it. We'll be clipping some of the bits up and posting it out. But have you enjoyed yourself? Can we welcome you back another time?
Oh, I would love to come back. I've had so much fun. Please don't put a 2-minute clip of me mindlessly blabbering about Lance Stroll.
No, we won't. It won't be 2 minutes, and it won't be the Lance Stroll love. It's going to be one of your more. I've said
mature and insightful things. Let's focus on that.
No, too true. I mean, we spent like 3/4 of the show looking at the first 5 teams. So there's a lot of magic in there that you offered up. So
100%.
Thank you so much for doing that.
I hope you enjoy editing it.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, Lucy. It's been an absolute pleasure. And of course, you guys out there that have joined in, the regulars such as Gary, Felix, Noah, Karina, who was in there as well, one of our previous guests. It's not gone missing that you guys are supporting the show. So thank you so much. And if you're out there tuning in, rewatching, thank you for watching, and share and subscribe. Hit the like button as well, because it really helps project us out there and build that momentum. And don't forget to follow at Last Lap Lucy across all the socials as well. She's making some great content, particularly for all the younger feeder series as well. So make sure that you follow Lucy's journey in and around motorsport. It's been great to join all of you guys once again this evening. We'll see you back here on the 19th of May to review the Grand Prix at Imola. Have a good one, people.